And now I'm very pleased to welcome back a man who is podcasting about sports betting before 99% of all shows out there. You know him as the co-host from the Deep Dive podcast, as well as Brown Bag Bets. Really happy to bring back Mr. Andy Molitor from Betsperts.com. You can follow Andy at AndyMSFW. Andy, how's your football season shaping up for you?
Decent. Finally had a decent week. We were talking a little off the air about the teasers. The teasers came through last week. Green Bay was my last bet of the weekend. It always feels good to have the last one. Like, it puts you in a bad mood if you have a Sunday night or a Monday night game that doesn't go well. So Green Bay coming through in the end against the spread, a little on the money line there was good. And I guess we actually had a halftime bet on the Cowboys second half. So got a little bit there too. So it's always tough. It's been a little tough sailing, getting my numbers in line, but I feel like I'm finally in a good position with a couple of these teams that have surprised us so far and making adjustments for them.
Yeah, nice job. Same here. Had the Packers +4, bet it early before their Monday night game against the Lions because I figured they should blow out the Lions, which only would bring that number down. I'd like to do that on Monday every once in a while, but great call in Dallas because, even if the team's winning, the number adjusts towards the dog a little bit, think it's going to catch up. But if you see a matchup disadvantage, man, that's where you get more value on your team. So good call there, Andy. As far as the year, I mean, we're coasting through here. Injuries already happened to some teams. Everyone's got to keep their eyes on the injury report. Very important things. But I have a different topic that's kind of interesting to talk about here. And it's really funny because players come into this league with so much hype from what they did in college football. And now I have to ask, out of the 5 first-round quarterbacks that were drafted, I have to ask, which one was the least terrible this season? And I know Trey Lance hasn't played, so we'll keep him out of it. But man, what are your thoughts on Fields, Mac Jones, the Jets quarterback? I keep forgetting Zach Wilson. Yeah, it's looking pretty bad, man.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll throw Davis Mills in there because he started the game.
Yeah,
that's not. No, we can't. There was no hype around Davis Mills. There's no hype around Kellen Mond. Like, those guys were later picks. But yeah, the Trey Lance thing, that was the joke me and Drew made. We were like, is Trey Lance the best just by attrition because he hasn't had a chance to go out there and make a fool of himself like some of these other guys? But yeah, I went back and kind of dug into some of the turnovers that we've seen from both down in Jacksonville and up in New York. It's been rough. Mac, I get, again, like, throwing Lance out, Mac wins by attrition. Again, by not being great, by being the least bad as far as his win was against the Jets, which is another rookie quarterback and a franchise that is, near the bottom of everybody's power rankings. They're looking just as bad as last year, if not worse at times, and not offering almost nothing on offense. So the fact that Mac Jones got his one win against them doesn't speak a lot to him, but he's made fewer mistakes, I guess, and maybe you can attribute that to probably a little bit more to a coaching staff that's conducive to helping a young quarterback out and making him better rather than, you have Saleh in New York with Zach Wilson, first-time head coach. You've got Urban Meyer down in Jacksonville, who's never coached at this level before, even though he's had a storied career. And then you've got Matt Nagy, which people have opinions on him as well, as far as how he's, managing games and managing his young quarterback so far. So maybe Mac is just the beneficiary of a decent offensive coordinator, and that's what we're going to see this year.
Yeah, good call. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is 30th in QBR right now. Zach Wilson is 31st, and Justin Fields is 32nd. And no surprise there. But, you see him in the preseason, some flashes, and you're like, wow, Mac Jones is killing it. Just took Cam Newton out of it. The Patriots are back. And then, holy cow, the real players come up, and there you go. The Miami comes and shuts them out the first game. And New England had a pretty easy schedule even up to this point, but we'll get to that a little bit later. So for me, I'm going to say, even though Mac Jones is 21st in QBR, I think he's just set up way better than Trevor Lawrence. I mean, with the coordinator, like you mentioned, and obviously the team that came back and all the free agency signings. So I'm going to go with Trevor, even though it's not looking great, because without that pick six in the second half early when they were beating the Cardinals there, was getting a little worried for my teaser, and I'm sure there's a lot of Survivor tickets out there really holding their breath, man. So gonna go with Trevor. Next question. What? Let's talk about finding an edge. Let's do that. What's the best way in general, if you're going to give advice to people approaching NFL Week 4 to find an edge?
Yeah, I mean, with me, I update my power numbers every week. Monday, Tuesday, start to dig into the injury stuff and look early. I think it's funny. I think all of the bets we've made early in the year have gone poorly for us, even with good closing line value on them. We've had, or early in the week rather, some of these Sunday night bets, you get 3-4 points of value on a side on a total, and it's just never been close. Like it's not usual. And again, we're working with a pretty small sample size, but I sometimes you can find some really nice value early in the week as you see some of these numbers flying already. I've seen a couple that have almost got away from me before I was able to grab them, but I think just having, even if you don't feel comfortable making super complicated rankings based on this, that, or other thing, you can go to a bunch of different websites. And I mean, like PFF, maybe behind a paywall, has theirs. I'm not sure if it is or not. Team rankings. I know the Massey Peabody rankings. Like, there's a bunch of places that just have power rankings out there, public facing. If you just want to steal some of those, look at those and kind of make some adjustments based on how you feel about the teams, and then start making your own numbers. And then look at those numbers when they come out, compare to even a good thing that I've done forever is to grab the look ahead lines on Saturday night, Sunday morning before the games start, and then look at what those lines open up again on Sunday, and just look at those adjustments and kind of get a feel for why the market did that, and if you think it overreacted. Because I think a lot of times there are some wild overreactions. You can see that, and I'm not saying I'm agreeing with this one, but the Buffalo Bills looked really good last week, and Houston obviously has a mess of problems. And that opened up at 17 and a half at some places. And there's been a pretty steady stream of Houston money coming in, which again, I'm not excited to get in that boat, but it's the market apparently overreacted a little, and we're seeing money coming back on that. So knowing where the lines were before Sunday is, and kind of discerning an edge based on what you think the market should have done compared to what it actually did, I think can find you a nice little edge, or at least a little more understanding of what the market's doing. And I think that can help a lot too, as you start to track down injuries, track down positional group matchups, as far as if you think there's advantages here or there. And then obviously putting some context to what you saw on Sunday and deciding, was this defense actually good, or was the offense that was put out against it making it look good? Because I think there was actually 3 or 4 of those last weekend.
100%. And I always tell everybody, why put yourself through putting your own power ratings out there when you can just take 3 and even average them together? I mean, Sagarin's out there too. Like you said, team rankings is a one I trust a lot. I think it's a really good. I compare my notes to them. One thing that a lot of these don't do is adjust for injuries. So that's where you can kind of develop your own numbers anyway. Now, I'm crazy like you. I do my own power ratings. I've been doing it like that for years, but I definitely think comparing them to some of the public ones out there based on efficiencies really will help you get an edge. So 100% agree with all of that great advice. And yeah, bet the Saturday line, wait 8 days and see what they open up the following Sunday and see where you're at. I mean, the Eagles were 6-point dogs to KC, and now it's up to 7.5 here. Yeah. That's just one example of a big reaction. Now, if it's an overreaction, that's up to you. That's where you make your decisions. Let's move on.
For sure.
Let's move on to some games, bud. I kind of want to touch on every game a little bit here, and I'll just go in order of rotation if that's cool. And
sure.
I gave you 4 that we could focus on. I have a couple plays on a couple, and we'll see if we line up our ideas. Let's go start with Jacksonville versus the Cincinnati Bengals here. Cincinnati is now a 7.5-point favorite. I'm going to give you the floor, Andy, and have you start out with this one.
Yeah, nice little teaser leg, probably. I mean, there's a little advantage there. You do have kind of a tried and true and probably adjusted for and baked into the number at this point of a rookie head coach on Thursday night. You've got precious little time to prepare for a Thursday night game. It's tougher for people who haven't done it before, although I don't know how much of advantage over like a Zach it's not like Cincinnati's head coach is Bill Belichick either. So I have this number really close to where it is, although I'm leaning towards using it possibly in a teaser leg. I like it. I'm starting to like the Cincinnati defense. It
Uh-huh.
has some pieces that is starting to. I I've adjusted them up a little. I haven't gone crazy with them. I'm still not putting them as like a top half of the league team, but
Right.
they have some pieces on defense that have definitely flashed. And if a big part of my trepidation with them early in the season was, is Burrow ready to be back on that knee after a pretty cataclysmic injury? And it seems to look fine. So I've given them a little bump up, and yeah, I'll probably be teasing Cincinnati with a few other teams.
No, there you go. And a lot of people are saying nice early Thursday night teaser leg because at least you know what you got going on until the
Yeah.
weekend. You can always read if you like the other leg, you can always throw something else on it. So
Put it back together when it falls apart.
exactly. And no, I see what you're saying. The spread's a little big for me, and the
Mhm.
reason that is because you have a Jacksonville team that's desperate. I mean, this team is embarrassed, and now you're going into a fat and happy Bengals team that just beat the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers have owned this division, it's kind of with the Ravens, but still over the past 10 to 15 years with Big Ben there. That spells danger for me. And I do agree with you. I bumped them up in their defensive rankings. I think they did a bad job at the Bears, but they did a great job holding the Vikings, which is actually one of the best offenses in the league
Yeah.
so far. You got to give them some serious credit for that. But at the 7.5, you're going past the key numbers of 7 and 3 and the secondary numbers of 6 and 4. So it is a great positive EV move to make that teaser. I just can't get on board on the side because of the desperation here. But it wouldn't surprise me if they also did cover it, just not a game on a Thursday night that I'm probably going to get involved with. And now, in the beginning, I don't use a lot of stats because there's just so much variance. I think strength of schedule is probably something that you can look at. Going back to my other question to try to get an edge, that and maybe ATS margin. If ATS margin, the market hasn't caught up to them yet. But what I will say is that coming into this game, Jacksonville has nothing to lose and they're going to have a lot to prove. Teaser leg's probably the best play for me. And let's move on to the next game. We have Sunday, Washington football team versus the Atlanta Falcons here. And I find it funny that you mentioned, position group matchup, because this is one where you can look at a position group matchup with the defensive line of Washington against the bad offensive line of Atlanta. And that's something that keeps me completely off Atlanta. But what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I make this with my raw numbers. I would be wanting to bet Atlanta with Washington on the road on the second straight week on the road, and it's just a slight edge to Atlanta that I will never bet because, just like you said, it's it's been a really big problem already. If anybody hasn't watched Atlanta play this year, I guess kudos to you. You haven't missed much. It's been awful watching it, but yeah, like you nailed that. Their offensive line is giving Matt Ryan almost no time, and this is a decent defense. It kind of got picked apart by a really good offense, so maybe people are going to be a little down on it, and I don't think you should be in a matchup like this where it might be brutal. It might be a pretty bad day for Matt Ryan. So completely skipping this one.
Yeah, that's a good one to pass on this one too. I'd be worried about even teasing Atlanta here with that bad offensive line. It's not like Washington's not feeling desperate and after that loss being 1-2 in Atlanta, just did come off with that win. So pass on that one for me. Let's move on to an even uglier game. I hate to say as a Bears fan, because they're hosting the Lions and they're not even 3-point favorites anymore, man. I mean, what's this say about the Bears this year?
Yeah, I took a little Detroit when it was 3. I was mad I didn't get a bigger number, honestly. A bunch of people have piled into that market. It was kind of a numbers play. I downgraded Chicago. Detroit, it's not like it got a bump up, but they stayed neutral enough to make this a play at 3. Honestly, I have these teams closer than I thought I would at any point during the season, and just a little probably some people not wanting to get into this market at all, just based off the Nagy stuff, saying he doesn't know which quarterback is going to start. I'm not sure it matters a whole lot. I don't have a big difference between them. Although if they do go with Fields again, and that's the game plan they roll out, It's might be another long day. Like to not even get any yardage or scoring in garbage time was the biggest embarrassing part, I guess, to me. Like, once you're down a bunch, you're down multiple scores late, to not even muster up a garbage time drive. Like they finished with a really, really low yards per play in the ones. So I'm not sure I've seen a box score like that in a long, long time. It was rough, and obviously a much, much tougher defensive line. But I've said it a couple times. I've been impressed with the front seven for Detroit so far. And although it might not be a good team, and I I said bad things about Mr. Campbell. Like he might be a psychopath, but he's got him playing hard. He's got the defense playing hard, and he's been sort of aggressive. So yeah, I'm on Detroit for a little bit here, and it doesn't feel good.
I can't talk you off it, but the market did get robbed here because it should have been a 3.5 all freaking day coming in here. And I mean, they look so bad that you couldn't even get a 3.5, and now it's down to 2.5. One thing I'm going to say about this game, even in the Bears situation, you're never as bad as what you saw the last week, and you're never as good as what you saw the last week when it comes to professional football. The Bears are absolutely embarrassed here. Nagy's embarrassed. These players are playing for their integrity right here now. That's what's keeping me off teasing Detroit, but I do agree with the teaser leg at 2.5.
Oh,
Bring
yeah.
that sucker right up to 8.5. I just can't even imagine the Bears getting margin here when the total is 42. It's a perfect teaser leg, and I still might do it. I just kind of I'm going to dive a little deeper into this one, but the thing that keeps me off of it is the Bears are desperate, and man, the way the Lions lost that game is just so Detroit, dude. I mean, what the hell? The refs botch it, and a 66-yard field goal, for God's sake. It was an awesome field goal, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, I had some teasers, like, or about halftime. I was like, God, how is Arizona screwing my teasers up? And then an hour later, it's like, oh my God, Baltimore, you're going to be the one. Arizona was winning by 15 at that point, felt real good, and then Baltimore goes and does that. So yeah, wild ending of the game. We'll see how they bounce back, and I agree, probably another one I'll be putting in some teasers this week.
And Justin Fields is a negative 20.5 completion percentage above expectation. That's
Yeah.
how low he was, above his expected percentage. I never see a number that low. It's just so bad. Let's get away from this garbage here and move on to something a little bit better.
I was going to say, you're moving to a Jets game, I think.
Oh my God, you're right, because I'm going by rotation. Well, at least one team's okay. The Tennessee Titans against the Jets. It's now 7, okay? And it was 7.5, but the Julio Jones news came out today saying he's highly questionable to play this game now, and they already are down in AJ Brown. So that's why that number moved down, but it's still the Jets here. I hate to say it, but I'm leaning the Jets. I didn't handicap the game for anything for prep. I think the Jets numbers are better than what they've showed because their turnovers have been just so bad. But if you look, their defense is not even doing all that bad. So anything on this one?
Yeah, and it's been hard to tell because a lot of the Jets, the game state they've played in, it's been such a negative game state, especially like being down to Denver like that. It just feels like they were down by 3 scores the whole game, even though it was actually close for a while. Just they weren't ever going to move on them. So my numbers lean Jets, but my brain says that I like money more than that, and I'm not going to be getting involved. If this had gone the other way, if it had stretched out to like 8.5, 9, or maybe even worse, if we didn't have the injuries, I'd think about it. But yeah, with Tennessee with no injury, a couple injuries on the wide receiver core, and then honestly, this is one of those where I don't think Tennessee's defense is that good. Just Carson Wentz not being able to move made their defense look a lot better than probably they are. The pressure rates they got are not something they normally do. So I don't believe in this Tennessee defense much. And maybe this under, it's already ticked down a couple points. I mean, we're already down at 44, so I'm probably leaving this one be.
You have another desperate team, home dog at the 7. 7.5 would have been a lot better. But Jesus, Robert Saleh there, he better get this team going. They don't want to have the same start as they did last year. And I wonder if that's going to motivate them a little bit here. The only side I would play in this, unfortunately, would be the Jets. Let's move on to the next one, the Cleveland Browns versus the Minnesota Vikings here. This one's been interesting because it was at 1 on Monday morning. It went to 2. Now I kind of see him creeping back a little bit. There's some Vikings love coming back at this line. Um, I'll start on this one. The Vikings, fantastic adjustments by Zimmer in that game against Seattle. Now, Seattle had like almost 300 yards the first half and then pretty much nothing the second half, and they just couldn't stop the run. Alexander Madison did great, and so did Amir Abdullah, and they pretty much controlled the time of possession here. This is a different animal now because they played a bad rushing defense against the Cardinals, and they almost should have won that game. And obviously, that first game against the Bengals was crazy into overtime. But now they're playing a really legit defense, in my opinion, with Cleveland here. And Cleveland also has a legit offense. The question about this line that you have to ask yourself is the Vikings a great team? And is Cleveland Browns 4 points better, 5 points better? Because that's what you're going to have to do to get to this line. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know if I'd play it now. I probably actually still would because I do think I have Cleveland a lot better than Minnesota, even after what happened last week. I'm putting more of what happened in that second half on Seattle's decision making than Minnesota, although I do like Minnesota's offense a lot this year, a lot more than I thought I would. They're doing some good things. The run scheme is just as good as last year, but Cousins seems to have taken a little step forward, which is something I never thought I'd see throughout the end of his career. So Sunday night, this was a pick'em. I played this at a pick'em, -108 for the Browns. We just basically saying like, this is going to be, this is going to move out to 1.5, 2, and it did move out to 2. I'm not sure I'd still feel as comfortable playing it there. It's easy to say when you have a better number, but I do make this, Cleveland by a field goal. So not surprised it moved. I'm glad it moved with me. And yeah, it was another one of those where even though I'm certainly not going to say anything bad about the Cleveland defense, they're good. But even they said, there was quotes from them saying like, I'm not sure what Chicago was doing. They decided not to roll him out. They decided not to use pre-snap motion. Like basically a couple, there was quotes saying like he was a sitting duck for us. They had 9 sacks. Minnesota has a pretty rough offensive line as well. So unless they can work around this pass rush, I think they are in some trouble even at home.
Yeah, and coming off a win, it's not as desperate of a moment as what they showed the second half against the Seahawks as well. The Cleveland Browns are rolling. I agree with your side. Let's move on to the Colts versus the Dolphins, and I got to tell you, these early games kind of suck. If you maybe want to go if you want to go to the zoo or something, maybe and catch the later games, might be a good time to brown nose the wife a little bit, but. As far as this, I mean, the Dolphins quarterback looked terrible last game, and somehow my Dolphins ticket hit. I thought that thing was toast 4 or 5 different times last week, and somehow they got it done. I think there's some officiating that helped us, of course, but man, I have no faith in their offense either. And what the hell are the Colts? And now the Colts are losing guys on defense like Kwity Paye. And I think they have a cornerback injured now too. Carson Wentz is wobbling out there on his 2 injured ankles. He really has moved down in my books, Andy. He is not the quarterback that he showed the first year. And it took me a little while to see that, but he's just like Andy Dalton to me, or pretty much now, maybe a Jimmy Garoppolo at best. But I'm not high on him at all. And there's going to be 15-mile-per-hour winds this game, I just noticed, which, the stadium is somewhat impervious to that down in Miami if you've looked at it. But at the same time, I think the running game is going to win the game for one of these teams.
Yeah, I have Miami power ranked enough where I would be pretty close to pulling the trigger. I probably will. Not a great situation for Indianapolis here. They are another team. There's a bunch of these this week, but they had to play at Tennessee. They will be playing at Miami. I almost want to skip this and hope they play well because they'll be on their 3rd straight road game next week at Baltimore. 3rd straight road games don't happen too often. I honestly think there are maybe only 3 or 4 all season, and this is one of them. So kind of a really rough spot for them next week. But again, even this, it's going to be, I checked the weather and I don't know how much I trust it this far out, but it's Miami and it's still early fall. It's going to be 70% humidity. It's going to be 85 degrees. So 2nd straight road game in the Miami heat and humidity. I don't trust Brissett a ton, but again, he got the cover. He looked okay. Their defense did the thing where they scored like they did every game last
They
year.
do. They do.
And the biggest part was the injuries for Indianapolis is having them some minor adjustments for everything happening there. And if your quarterback can't move against a decent pass rush, he's going to get hit a bunch. I have a bad feeling for Carson Wentz, and also the decision making from Indy, just what they were doing and leading to turnovers. Honestly, last week they probably should have been more into that game. So yeah, bleeding Miami here. Probably going to pull the trigger if this number stays where I want it to.
All right, so there you go. Big lean to Miami and possibly even a play on the Dolphins here at home in the Miami Heat. All right, let's move on to a game that there actually has a really good matchup, and the Carolina Panthers are playing the Dallas Cowboys here. And this is one of the ones I wanted to dive a little bit deeper here because I do have a play on this game. I got to tell you that I've had to move the Cowboys up in my power ratings. I was kind of a non-believer coming in. I took their under 9.5 wins here, and we'll see how that all pans out. It's not looking great with that Chargers victory that they got. But what's funny about Dan Quinn? It's like, where the hell was this defense when he was at Atlanta? Right? I mean, they're doing way better. They're blitzing. They're finding every single hole is covered. I'm shocked, man. And it's like all of a sudden he comes to Dallas under Mike McCarthy, who can't seem to know his ass from the hole in the wall, is somehow doing well. It's just amazing to me. The Cowboys had a pretty hard schedule so far this year too. I mean, they played Tampa, they went to the Chargers. It's just been a tough road, and they just blew out the Eagles. Now, here's the thing for me here. I look at the turnover margin, and the Cowboys are leading at +5 turnovers. Now, can I trust that? Not a McCarthy team I can't trust, right? That's one big thing I look at here. And their defense is still a little bit suspect because they're actually third worst, allowing 6.7 yards per play. And I know it's a little early for some of these stats, but I think after 3 games, we at least have some sort of a sample here. The Panthers #1 in pressure rate, and that's huge for me. This defense has really turned it around from last year, and rush EPA as well. I mean, they're #1 in most of those categories here. Now, Carolina's had some offensive struggles, and I don't love their offensive line, but Sam Darnold looks like a new guy under Matt Rule's system. 6th in QBR so far this year. And now they have a big ATS margin as well. I think the Cowboys are at 10 and they are at 10.2. But the biggest thing that I'm looking at, Andy, is the rest factor. Dallas coming off a short week here. They had that big win, right? One of the scores was a pick 6. The Panthers have 10 days, and I know they lost CMC for this game, but Chuba Hubbard's fine, and Royce Freeman's fine. Coming into slot for CMC here, they're gonna fit right in. They replaced the J.C. Horn injury with Henderson. They made that trade. I think that was smart. I think 5 or 4.5 is too many points, and I'm betting Carolina here at Dallas, man. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I can't get the number here to 4.5, 5. I'm not even close. This is one where I've just been asking around and digging into things, trying to. Usually, when I'm off by this much, I missed something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to ask.
I think maybe too many people or the market just upgraded Dallas too much. I gave them a bump, but I've been bumping Carolina as well. And, we had all these discussions in the offseason about how, Darnold has to get it figured out or this team's going nowhere. I guess nobody expected the defense to kind of step up like this. And the way the defense is flying around and playing hard and getting good, their pressure rate and just what they've been doing, even in the secondary a little, I've been impressed. And they are another team that's playing again, another back-to-back road game, but I'm kind of wiping that out because you get the 10 days rest. That takes a lot of the starch out of that. It's not like this is a trip from coast to coast either. You are just heading back to Texas again. So I'm not too worried about that. And yeah, the extra rest, the extra prep that the coaching staff gets, and Dallas, what they had to, I guess we'll call it a blowout. Like Dallas is fine. It wasn't a lot of excursion or exertion in the second half after a certain point, but they still had to keep the foot on the gas there. So little, rest advantage Carolina, and I like the defense, and Darnold's been fine. Like
Mhm.
I don't think everyone's been like, oh my God, Darnold, is he in the MVP conversation? Nobody's going to say that. Maybe I mean this team could be really good this year. And I don't think anyone's going to say that. It's just he's been good enough to make a team with this kind of weapons work out. And yeah, we'll see what it looks like with without CMC, but we've seen this in a bunch of other places. Sometimes it's scheme and not running back. Although I don't want to dog on Christian McCaffrey. He's an outstanding talent, but so is Dalvin Cook, and we saw what a good run scheme can do for a backup running back. Like Madison was all over the place. So I do have a feeling they'll keep this close, possibly even win. So yeah, I'm very much going to be grabbing a 4.5 or 5 here.
All right, I'm glad we see eye to eye on that one and agree. So great stuff there and great points on running back schemes. I've been saying that for years. Let's move on to the Giants, the New York Football Giants versus the New Orleans Saints. -7.5. Some 8s out there. Low total 43.5. I'll let you shoot.
Yeah, this is just it's another week of teasers. Like there's so many good teaser legs. I put together some stupid 8-leggers last week just to keep the books happy. One of them even hit by accident. Like, oh no, like that's not
Eight
what
like
that's for.
teaser. Wow. Was
Yeah,
that pay like plus 650 or something?
yeah, it was a bunch. Like I didn't put much on it, but boy, it was like, oh, all these legs are hitting. Everything's hitting. I read like
Mhm.
any basic strategy one you could put in. So there's like 8 or 10 of them again this week that are going to be right on the basic strategy or really close to it. This is one. Yeah, I'm not interested in laying these points. I'm really on market with this. I make this right about a 7. I'm pretty close to where it is. Nothing situational outside of it is the Saints. Technically, their home opener. They haven't got to play at home yet, so maybe a little bit of a boost from the crowd if you want to factor that in at all. But they did have to play that first home game in Jacksonville versus Green Bay, so this is their homecoming after the flooding from the storm. So a little boost there, but yeah, I'll probably be teasing them. New York, I don't have big problems with them as far as I guess I'm saying it wrong. I do have big problems with them. They're not a good team, but I haven't had to adjust them much. I started them off as a bad team to start the year. So it's
Mhm.
not like I've been constantly downgrading them. I've liked a few things. I like what they've done with Daniel Jones in the run game at times, but the Tony draft pick is looking bad, and some of the other decisions they made in the offseason, Booker is looking like a bad signing, and I'm not sure the front office really knows how to put together a team. I think the front office thinks they're at a different point in the rebuild than they actually are. Like they
Mhm.
think they're competitive, and they're certainly not at that point. So it's not a team I'm looking to back a lot until we get more points than this. Like I said, I'm pretty on market. Probably be looking at a teaser on the Saints here.
Well, they blew it on the rebuild because they ignored the most important thing was their offensive line and
Oh yeah.
protecting their quarterback. I mean, how do you do? I mean, this is how the Bears have been rebuilding for 30 years. So, trust me, I know a little bit about that. But yeah, great points. And I'm not even sure if Tony's a bad draft pick or if just Joe Judge is completely
Yeah.
incompetent either. And that's something to think about. There are a lot of weird storylines that you can make to this game because you have the 0-3 team desperate going to a team with inconsistent quarterback like Jameis Winston. I guess that when he lost to Carolina, it was probably the real thing. Carolina's a pretty good team. But you always worry about the pick sixes and the back doors when it comes to anything over 7. The Giants, they still somehow rank 18th in DVOA. And I like DVOA because it adjusts for schedule. So I'm okay
Hmm.
with using that stat a little bit earlier from Football Outsiders. Somehow they do. They have moved the ball down the field, but their schedule hasn't been all that great either. The biggest thing for me is losing Blake Martinez, their linebacker, the Mike linebacker. And that's comparable to like your best rebounder on a basketball team in my opinion. Maybe your best defenseman from hockey because he calls the plays and he gets the team going in the huddles. And it's not as important of offensive quarterback, but it's the most important part of your defense. I'm concerned for that. The Saints, according to my power ratings, are a little higher than yours. I have a -9.5 in this game, but my algorithm, really my function that I run, and I'm starting to be able to use some of these stats, actually brings it up to 12 points. But I'll be damned Andy, if I'm not teasing this thing down to -1.5, because I already did, and it's going to be part of a teaser that I give away a little bit later. But that is the must play on this situation.
Yeah, and that injury's rough. Outside of losing Bradbury, that's kind of the worst thing that could happen to a defense that was going to struggle if it lost too many pieces. And we've seen that already. And again, like you said with Carolina, maybe I'm a little more forgiving of that loss to Carolina now that we know like that's a legit defense.
Yeah, it's very true, very true. And they did blow out the Patriots. Let's move on to the next game. We have the Kansas City Chiefs is next on rotation, 265, 266 at the Eagles. The Eagles are home dogs, plus 7-ish. It's creeped up to 7.5 in some books. I'm just going to call it a flat 7 for what we have to talk about here. Then the total is 54.5, a very high total for any Eagles game. But that Chiefs defense has been like Swiss cheese a little bit themselves, man. I'm going to give myself a little pat in the back for betting the Chargers on the money line last week.
There you go.
It was a spread and money line. I never not do a spread if I do a money line, so I was happy about that. There's just some weird stuff you can sniff out on this Chiefs defense. It's bad. It's the worst in yards per play this year. I think it's like third worst in yards per point giving up. And so some of the magic that Mahomes had is starting to kind of fade a little bit, because that's what he had was actual magic the last couple of years. And so they have not been covering here. Eagles coming off an ugly loss, but on a short week. I'm just going to give a lean to the Eagles here and see what you have.
Yeah, I make Eagles value, but I don't feel super great about betting it. Kansas City's defense has been a little more susceptible than we thought, but that was against offenses that have a clue and have some weapons. Really, really, I upgraded Dallas. I liked what Dallas did. I think they have some young players that are good on defense, but at the same time, kind of similar to the Bears thing, where it's like, what was the game plan here? This is what you're going to do. You're going to put it all on this young quarterback. We're not going to run hardly at all. We're going to, not that you should always be running the ball, but there's certainly downs where running is good. And they had a couple decent runs when they did use it. Like just Philly's game plan, game sequencing, the play calling wasn't great. I don't know if they're going to be able to translate that and take advantage of a bad defense. So yeah, I'm staying away from this one, even though I show a little value on Philadelphia here. I'm not interested in that. And if they win or come in the back door, I guess that's fine. I'll just I'm not feeling good enough about it, even with the small amount of value I'm showing, to put any money on this. And so Andy, everyone's going to talk about Tom Brady going back to Foxborough. It's Andy Reid revenge game going back to Philly, and he has
right.
I did read a fun fact. It would be his 100th win with the Chiefs, which would give him, I think he'd be the only guy to ever have 100 wins with two different franchises, which is kind of wild.
That is wild. That's really awesome. What, Bill Belichick didn't do it in Cleveland? Oh, that's right. He was there like 2 years. Man, that was a long time ago. Oh, I didn't think of that storyline, but at the same time, he won a Super Bowl, so I don't think he has to.
No, I don't. I think it's more of a fun barroom fact than anything. I don't think that's coming into the handicap.
You know what's funny is I don't even feel comfortable teasing the Chiefs, and I don't know why. I just don't feel it. I'm not sure, man. It's a great teaser leg for a Chiefs game, but Jesus, on the road like that, I don't know.
Yeah, on the road with a high total with a team that's been a little less than consistent as far as what we've been used to. I'm not super excited about that one as a leg.
And you wonder if, I called the Eagles a poor man's Ravens, and that's because Jalen Hurts has the wheels and things like that. You just wonder if somehow that happens this game too. But I could see lots of variance in this game. Probably keeps me completely off of it. Let's move on to 267, 268. We have the Houston Texans at the Buffalo Bills. And this is, you can pass on this game if you want, because we haven't passed yet. I'm going to pass. It's a massive number, but the Texans are better than what was expected, but the Bills have been blowing people out. Anything?
Yeah, I show a little value, but there are a few teams that do keep their foot on the gas rather than just kind of run the ball when they're up big, and the Bills are one of those teams. So even if you show value. I'm not getting in the way of this one. Houston gets a little extra rest. They are off Thursday night, so they get extra time to prepare. But what does that mean when you have a Cully and Davis Mills as your quarterback head coach combo? I'm not sure it really matters all that much. So, yeah, full pass on this.
All right, full pass for me. Let's move on to a much bigger game here. We have the Arizona Cardinals at the LA Rams. Both of these teams undefeated. You're looking at -4 right now for the Rams. The total is 55. I mean, this is going to be a great game. I think maybe even the game of the week besides the Patriots. And it's a closer spread, so that's why you say that. The biggest storyline is definitely the Patriots hosting the Tampa Bay Bucks, but two undefeated teams, both 2-1 against the spread. The Rams took the Cardinals out of the playoffs last year. It was that final game, and they would have went ahead of the Bears because the Bears lost to the Packers last year, second string Packers, by the way. But yeah, and it's just going to be fantastic watching what Kyler Murray, a healthy Kyler Murray, can do here at SoFi Stadium. And that's what it was last year. His shoulder was hurting. He was playing pretty injured last year, but now they really upgraded. I really like their linebacker that they got there. And J.J. Watt, of course, on the defense has really kind of fired this defense up. Now, they haven't been stopping the run much, but the thing about the Rams is they're not running the ball that well. And Devery Henderson was out last game. Sonny Michel is kind of new to their playbook. Only 3.3 yards per attempt on rushing for the Rams. And that's the weak spot that you have to attack Arizona. So I'm a little bit concerned there. Now, both teams real high in DVOA. They're 3-4. How much home field advantage are we giving the Rams? I almost feel like maybe it went up because of their new stadium, but I don't know. That's something I'm going to be paying attention to, Andy, a little bit more. What I will say is I did bet the Cardinals +6, and it's at 4, so I do have some value there. And I think I think that they have a chance to win it outright. I mean, my power ratings have the spread probably close to what it was, but just the fact that this is a staple for the Cardinals, my power ratings is at 4, and that's where it is, and I bet it at 6. So, anything you have anything?
Yeah, I wish I would have done my power ranking sooner this week on this one because I have it at like 3.7. I would have bet it at 6. It's down. It's now done. Now I'm at market. Like I'm on market with it. So congrats on your bet. I think it was a good bet. I agree with that. And the market got to this one faster than I was able to catch up with it. Arizona, the only thing, it is a second straight roadie for them, but it's not a big travel spot from Arizona up to Southern Cal. I don't give a really big home field for anybody this year. SoFi being, pretty much the same, probably about an average field. And yeah, the Arizona Cardinals last year, we talked about this a bunch in the offseason. They were a completely different team after the shoulder injury. They were dynamic on offense. Murray was doing a lot, and then it completely flipped. It's like it flipped a switch. The offense just took a huge step back. So when he's healthy, they're good. One of the teams, like the two biggest teams I was wrong on this year, as far as I was hesitant to make big upgrades because I hadn't seen much from this defense in Arizona yet, and the Rams still might be kind of fragile on defense. Just balancing on the edge of the knife with a few good players and an injury or two away from being bad on defense. So I've kind of upgraded these teams equally, and yeah, I'm right on market with the 4 here. I'm excited to watch this one.
Oh, me too. Yeah, and Zaven Collins is that linebacker they drafted. Yes, and I'm gonna lean. I'm gonna lean to. It looks like Andy dropped. He'll probably be back. Looks like he's there. I'm gonna lean to +6 here, and I think that I'm gonna lean at the +4 is what I'm trying to say. I think that's probably the best play that you're going to have in this situation here. So, waiting on Andy to come back. I'm going to. There you are, Andy. It looks like you have.
Yeah, I don't. I could hear you the whole time. I'm not sure. It's like I just went back into the waiting room for some reason, not the StreamYard.
Maybe the internet went bad a little bit. I don't know. Like you kind of faded for 1 second before that, but it looks much better now. I was just finishing off saying I'm just going to lean the Arizona Cardinals at the 4, maybe the 4. And you know what? I know I don't love teasing. Unless my power ratings is pretty far off, but some people might tease the 4.5 to 10.5. And I know you're going past a couple numbers there. It's not as good as juicy as the 7 and the 3, but I've had some successes doing that. Let's move on to the next game, Seattle versus San Francisco here. And this is now in between a 3 and a 2.5. It's like -2.5, -120. So it's more like 2.7 here. You know, my only thoughts here is you have a desperate Seattle team and you have an injured secondary for San Francisco. Is Russell Wilson going to finally make it happen after this whole thing happened to him last week? It looks like the bettors, I think it was at 3, if I'm not mistaken, Andy, and now it's down a little bit. So it looks like the bettors have kind of moved towards Seattle. I haven't really made a decision and I might be just laying off it or possibly teasing. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I don't have a strong take on this. I should look at what I did with these two teams this week. Looks like Seattle. Oh, I got to go to my week by week here. So Seattle got a mini downgrade just based on like they didn't do anything in the second half. I think a lot of that might be on the coaching staff. San Francisco kind of remained where they were. I didn't do much with Green Bay or San Francisco in my rankings. Like they kind of performed how I thought they would, which was fine because Green Bay ended up winning the game, or at least even without the drive, we stayed inside the number. So that was fine. I was never worried. I've said this. When Rodgers took the ball, it's like I was never worried about a pick six, like you are
Yeah.
sometimes. Like, oh my God, how is this going to end poorly for me on some lateral throw it around play or something? But yeah, that game kind of went like my numbers hoped it went. So I didn't make big adjustments, and I'm fairly on market here. I'm not sure I'm out to the 3. I'm close. I'm right around a 2 on this. I don't have a big interest getting involved in Seattle games right now. I'm not sure what the game plan is. They were up 17 nothing, 17-7, probably both. And just from there, it just melted. I'm not sure what they were doing. They made a poor punting decision. They made poor sequencing decisions. And yeah, the Minnesota offense is good enough that you can't just stop scoring points like that and expect to win on the road. So a tough task for them in conference or in division. And yeah, I'm sitting there with looking at about a 2 with Seattle again. It is another back-to-back roadie, not as far of a road trip, obviously, as to Minnesota, just heading down to Northern Cali, but I'm leaving this one alone.
Yeah, desperate on both sides here. 2.25 points is what I have above the average team for us, San Fran, and then Seattle's about 2. So I'm very close as well to this number. Let's move on to the next game, the Baltimore Ravens versus the Denver Broncos. And Andy, if I listened correctly on your podcast, you guys are always have been pretty high in Denver the last 2 years. Last year was the bad luck year, but this year they're looking pretty good, man. So I want to give you and Drew some props there at the deep dive. Really liking Denver so far. So with that, I'm gonna let you start on this one.
And it's funny because we bet Baltimore on Sunday. Just they open this as Denver, like a 1-point favorite, 1.5, something like that. Ended up looking at it and being like, I can't quite get there. Like this should move the other way. And even if it doesn't, I'm fine with this.
Mm-hmm.
I guess again, I think there's even one more another back-to-back road game. Not only that, but back-to-back plus at altitude, but you have a good coaching staff. You're getting a couple receivers back off the IR. Hopefully we see the rookie play this week. And Denver's had some injuries at receiver. And again, like this is just you don't have to go far. You can throw a stick and it's going to bump into somebody's tweet saying Denver hasn't played anybody, which is
the Giants, the Jaguars, and the Jets.
Yeah, I mean it's true, and it turns into a ticklish situation because I think we had this one year with Green Bay where it's like, man, are they really good right now, or are they just playing bad teams? Because you can win 3 games versus bad teams and then later find out like, oh, they weren't that good, they just played bad teams. But at the same time, they could end up just keep winning, being like the fact that they just played bad teams to start kind of hid the fact that they were actually good. So you kind of end up at a crossroads here where you have to make a decision on it. And I've upgraded Denver, and even with the upgrade, I'm still at a spot where I'm going to be betting Baltimore. I got them at plus money on the money line. I think it's probably moved maybe 10 cents off that. Not a lot of closing value yet, but I trust a better head coach, a better quarterback, and hopefully a healthy wide receiver core here on the road to get it done. I'm looking at Denver to take a little step back, although I do have, man, I have like a 20-1 for them to win the division, and it wouldn't break my heart, I guess. Maybe ends in a tie. That wouldn't be bad. Push.
There- since it's in the elevation, can Justin Tucker kick a 75-year-old yard field goal?
Yeah, that'd be something. They joked about that right after somebody said that, like, oh man, next week he could break it. Like he'll go up to Denver. Like, oh, I don't need that kind of drama in my life every week.
Oh man, I didn't even know someone said that. Now it sounds like I stole it. But hey,
Oh,
man, it's here. You know what's funny about the Baltimore? Really, obviously, everyone knows they got past that one, but that should almost
oh yeah.
motivate this team. They feel like they got, kind of like a coin flip and just won it. And now they can just move on and just give it a full effort at Denver. They're injured too at Baltimore, and Hollywood Brown is dropping passes. They probably should have.
Yeah.
They should have beat Detroit by more. I don't know why he's such fumble fingers, but you also have Sammy Watkins there at least, and they're a little bit bad on the defensive side of the game. And I would have bet Denver if it wasn't for their second injury now to Hamler, because now Jetty's out and now you have Hamler out. So that really takes me off that side. And it's going to be really interesting to see this game, because I think it's going to tell you a lot about which team is in which direction here. I know Baltimore beat Kansas City, but that win isn't aging quite as well as it should. And Denver's bad wins against those bad teams will age a lot better if they beat this team. So I can't wait to see the result, actually, Andy.
Yeah, and I think you said it right. Like that was a good analogy. Like they won a coin flip late to win a game. And I think if Hollywood Brown doesn't drop maybe even catches two out of those three passes, like, this game might have ended up with a completely different score line, and you're sitting here and Baltimore's a 2-point favorite in the market. Like the market, you could see a big difference in the market sentiment if they just get things done on offense and score 28 points and kind of put the Lions in their place there. And all of a sudden we're sitting in a completely different market. That's kind of where I'm at. I feel like that offense left a lot of points on the field, and that's why I kind of grabbed him when it was a plus number there.
Now that's probably a good strategy. Let's move on to the next one. Pittsburgh at Green Bay. So I'm seeing like +7s here with Pittsburgh, but they're highly juiced. I'm gonna keep calling this a 6.5. Okay.
Yeah.
We'll call this a 6.5. The minus the total. Sorry, the total's 46. We'll go -6.5. Green Bay home. It's kind of a later game. It's the afternoon game. It's gonna be a fantastic game. So the thing I have to say about this is, both of us, of course, were on Green Bay last week, that they're still feeling that first loss that they had. And that really motivated this team. A lot of people are down on Green Bay's defense, but I think it's better than what most people think. My question here is, how is Pittsburgh going to score? I don't see he's looking so bad. Big Ben is looking so bad, and they have no offensive line. Najee Harris is kind of being wasted, in my opinion, here, because I think he's actually a shining spot in this. Now you have Juju Smith-Schuster that's banged up. Deontay Johnson is banged up. I don't know what's going on with these guys. Okay. I like the Packers at 6.5, and I think it could be a play, is where I'm going to leave it.
Yeah, I'm close. I do have some question marks around their defense. They look good in the second half versus the Lions, but again, it is the Lions. And there were moments where they looked good against San Francisco, but they did let them back in that game. So a little inconsistency on the defense. Maybe it's something that, shuffles its way towards being more consistently half decent, above average. I don't expect this to be a great defense at any time this year, but they can be a good defense, I think. And yeah, if Rodgers is playing that well, I'd certainly not looking to go against him. So there's no way in hell I'm ever looking at taking a Pittsburgh ticket here. And especially the only thing that's kind of scaring me off this and laying these points is this total. You have a 45.5 in a Green Bay game. And I think some of that speaks to the high variance of how many points we might get out of Pittsburgh. Like this could be a no sweat winner for you, where it's like 21-0, 24-3 early, and there's like 6 points total in the second half.
It's TJ Watt.
Yeah, you just see a bunch of Green Bay running out some long drives and kicking a couple field goals or something like that. So this game could be kind of an ugly one to watch. I honestly believe Big Ben. Yeah, what you're getting out of him has been miserable. What they're using for an offense is not helping him. The offensive line really does stink. This could be a case of like my example with Tennessee, where Tennessee doesn't have a good pass rush, but it sure looked good last week against an immobile quarterback and an offensive line dealing with injuries. Green Bay doesn't have this high end pass rush, but it might look really good this week. So I'm kind of leaning your way too there. If I had to bet this, it would be Green Bay.
Yeah, Big Ben, fifth worst quarterback, and that's piled in with some of those rookies there. Under expectation, minus 4.6. Yeah, here's the thing. I wouldn't be shocked to see it either, but I am scared of TJ Watt. If he's questionable, I still think he's going to miss this game. You know, I think there's a much better chance for large margin if he's not disrupting there. But I will say the Packers did kind of take care of Bosa last week, and Rodgers got the
Yeah.
ball out of his hands quick. So I guess if you ask me, would I rather lay 7 with the Packers or 6.5 with the Packers or 7.5 with the Saints against the Giants, I would probably say 6.5 with the Packers. Okay.
Yeah,
I think that's fair.
better, more consistent quarterback play for sure. And like you said, good point there at the end with a big concern for people going into the Niners game was the injuries on the Packers offensive line. I thought they composed, they played well, especially against a really high end pass rusher, like you said, Bosa. So
Yeah.
maybe not as much of a concern as we thought on that front five.
Matt LaFleur is a great coach, and he's really moved up my rankings. So good call. All right, well, let's talk about the game of the week, man. That's what we have left. I mean, geez, Andy, we could talk forever. We could talk an hour about
Yeah.
the storylines coming into this game, and I mean, it's at 7 now, and I'm going to say that I took the 6.5 because I knew which way the line was going, and I would not be shocked if I'm buying back here at 7.5, 8, possibly even more come game time, because the storyline is that Brady's going to come in and he's going to show everybody that he was the reason behind it. But Belichick is sitting there wanting to do the same thing. But guess what? He's stuck with the rookie quarterback. The problem here is that Belichick's got the brand new quarterback, right? The OTAs aren't the same as it was 5 years ago in the NFL. They cut a lot of that stuff off. The Players Association made sure of that. So, that's why you see some of these rookies looking this bad. But if you look at strength of schedule, Tampa at least ranks 8th. New England ranks 30th. They haven't been playing tough games either. The Jets is their lowly victory here. And I guess the Saints are good, but I mean, with the Jets in Miami, that doesn't really show you a whole lot, especially when you had Miami at home. QBR, Brady number 7, Mac Jones number 21. Tampa's defense doesn't look quite up to expectations yet. But I mean, it was against the Cowboys, the Rams, and a desperate Falcons team. I mean, the Falcons have anything, I guess it's offense. So I'm still questioning Tampa's defense. I still think I could trust it in certain situations. My thoughts is that Tampa's are going to rally behind Brady because that's their guy, that's their teammate. I don't think a bunch of guys making 500 grand, 700 grand, way under the league average at New England's going to rally behind Belichick to get Mac Jones a paycheck.
Yeah.
That's just not how it works. I think this is a fantastic teaser leg, and I think that Tampa's going to win this game. I would consider taking it at 7, but I just because of pure raw numbers, 7.5, 8, I will have at least a half buyback on here. Tampa. I don't think they got the horses in New England to compete with Tampa's horses. And even Johnson, because of the Scotty Miller injury, even Johnson's a very good quarterback on this, wide receiver on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I think Antonio Brown will come back too. So I'm not as worried about the Scotty Miller injury. I could see a possible blowout, but I think the teaser is a safe thing.
Yeah, no, just what a team to be set up for injuries in the receiving core. Like you have people like Tyler Johnson just sitting back there. He was such a weird draft pick. It's like, man, they don't need a receiver. He's really good. Like he'd be starting some places. And he's like their 5th option. So, and a little bit of injury news out of that one. They had some guys that didn't play today or didn't practice it all day. And Pierre-Paul Gronk didn't practice with his rib injury, and then Giovanni Bernard either. So they had a couple guys sitting out. It is Wednesday, so it doesn't mean a lot. I think everybody played except obviously James White for the Patriots, he's done. Like his hip, he pulled the bone out of his hip. Like that's a big, massive growth. Yeah.
Wasn't that the Tua injury, Andy? I think it was similar to what
Yeah.
happened to Tua for Bama.
It's a bad injury. Like it's a major joint that pretty much just ripped apart. So he's done for a long time. So we'll see how those injuries hash out. But again, even if Gronk's limited, if you're seeing some receiver attrition on this Tampa Bay side, you still have really good backup. Even Cameron Brate and like you said, Tyler Johnson. You have good backups in this passing game. And I think maybe a little bit down in the market because of losing to the Rams, a team that I said I was wrong on. Like, hey, they're a lot better than I thought they were going to be, and I'm fine with Tampa Bay being down in the sentiment in the market because it does offer you a spot with just a honey of a teaser leg. Like every teaser in the world's closing with that one on Sunday night, and if it's sitting there at 7.5, I'll have it in a few, especially with some afternoon games. So I'll be looking that way. And yeah, my numbers don't suss it out as like, hey, I should be laying 7.5 with Tampa. I make this 6.4. So I'm right there. Tampa's on a back-to-back. But yeah, it's hard to, how do you factor in all the hoopla and all the emotion around this game? So it's probably not a game anybody should be betting. But I certainly will be, especially with a teaser like.
Oh, there you go, man. It's going to be a fun game to watch for sure. One thing I will say is that they're saying Gronk's going to play because there's a negative on the ribs. So they're already saying that.
He's tough.
Yeah, he's very tough. I guess best tight end in history is where you have to really say right now. And of course, the marriage with Tom Brady and Belichick certainly helped some of that. But there you go. Oh God, James White is the only guy that was really a veteran here on the skill positions of the Patriots offense. That was your veteran. That was your third down back. Huge loss. Now, I don't even know who's going to fill in there. It's tough. That's just tough. Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to the last game here on the slate. We have the Las Vegas Raiders, 3.5-point dogs at their second home in LA. And I say that because there's going to be at least 80% Raiders fans here, and it sucks for the Chargers. But this is an interesting line because it's getting a lot of talk this week. I mean, because the Raiders started so well, and the Chargers obviously coming off that massive victory. Anything on this one, Andy?
Yeah, I had to downgrade this to 0 points for home field. That is what it is. Like we saw what home field was without fans. A lot of it is the ref bias, the crowds, and just that we're not going to see a lot of that, or at least it's going to be evened out to the point where you almost have to give Vegas, joking, of course, but you almost have to give Vegas a little bit of home field here. Just ridiculous to
Maybe
say.
so. The travel's so small too.
Yeah, it's not like they're flying very far, man. This is not a great spot for a Chargers team that I really like. But yeah, I can't not have this 3.5. I can't get this close. The fact this is on the other side of 3 is silly to me. I have this a lot closer to a pick 'em. This is one of the numbers that I have the furthest off for the week. And yeah, I'll have some 3.5, and probably some money line in my pocket on the Raiders. Another team I was probably a little wrong on, the defense. A couple guys that just weren't ever seeming to step up have stepped up, and the passing game has turned into a little bit more of a deep threat. They're winging it around, and I liked what they did last week as far as, hey, we're down 14-0. Nobody packed it in. They went down there and they got themselves back in the game, and they've won now two overtime games now. A couple nice wins for them. So
I have them about equally power rated. Why didn't I bet this yet?
Yeah, no, this is. I have them pretty close. It's like, well, this is silly.
I have the Chargers a quarter point higher. All right, but so what? I mean, the Raiders are going to have more fans here. The Chargers in a letdown spot too. Yeah, I'm probably going to have to do it. Here's one thing that would scare me, and this is just me kind of crazy thinking here. Andy, maybe the Chargers are so pissed that they don't have a home field advantage in these games. I mean, it really didn't happen with Dallas either, that they're going to freaking put their foot down here and just be like, I am sick of getting disrespected where we play football. But that's just, me talking crazy. This spread is off. Something smells with this line, and I do not know why it's 3.5. So I agree with you 100% here. I'm going to have to play the Chargers, and I didn't play it yet, but you you took me over the ledge here, so I appreciate that. Hopefully it works.
Yeah, of all the places, like of all the teams to have to come play in your city of Los Angeles, the Raiders. Where there's so many Raiders fans that are already just built
So
in.
many.
Like it's a bad deal for them overall. So yeah, I'll be cheering for the black and silver. Just win, baby, on Monday night, and
Just
hopefully,
cover, baby.
yeah, just cover. Honestly, yeah, just lose by 3 because I'd love to
Unless we're
see the
taking an
Chargers.
outline on this to like -3 or something, or 2.5 or 3.5 or something.
Yeah, I might. This probably is one where I take a little bit. Money line's going to be +150, +160. I might have a little on that as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if it's that closely power rated and you think that the home field is going to switch like that, then it's probably important to do that, Andy. Man, we went a long time, but we nailed every single game, buddy. I really appreciate all your insights here. We had a lot of agreement and mild disagreement. That's always a good thing. So where can our listeners find your great information and just see you on your shows?
Yeah, at Andy MSFW on Twitter. That's me. I'll tweet out anything I'm doing, anything I'm writing, anything I'm appearing on. And obviously, the Deep Dive Pod is the big one with me and Drew, powered by Betsperts. We are at Deep Dive Pod on Twitter. Everybody knows Drew, just whale capper over there. If you don't know him, I don't know what you've been doing with your life if you're in gambling Twitter. But yeah, every Wednesday we go through all the games. So it'll be tonight. And then every Sunday we go through the openers, kind of do a quick review. And then, of course, halftimes of primetime games will be on our YouTube channel. So I would encourage people to follow the YouTube channel because the Periscope stuff is starting to die. Like the Twitter sort of replaced it, but it's not as good. You can't comment if you're watching a Periscope feed or it's just called a Twitter live feed. So if you want to, and we do enjoy that when we do live stuff with people jumping into the comments and stuff. So it is the Betsperts Media. That is our YouTube page. If you want to follow us over there, that's got everything. Anything we've ever done is going to be over there.
Well, don't sell yourself short, Andy, because everybody knows you as well in this industry, and you've done such a fantastic job, and we really appreciate it over here at the Odds Breakers, man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll be tweeting at you this weekend, and best of luck in all your plays.
Yeah, same. Thanks for having me, and good luck to you this weekend. Let's go.